Sarah Mitchell wasn't supposed to be in the water that day. The season had officially ended 2 weeks ago. Permits were expiring, the Poseidon's pumps were barely holding pressure, and storm warnings were flashing red across every monitor on the bridge. Her crew wanted to winterize the gear and head home. They were exhausted. The dredge frame had been warped from the last storm, and everyone knew the risks of staying out this late in the season. But Sarah couldn't sleep. Something about the sonar data from the previous day kept replaying in her mind. A perfectly flat return at 80 feet down. Too uniform, too clean, too deliberate. Not the scattered pattern of natural gold deposits. When the sonar tech dismissed it as probably bedrock, Sarah studied the readings for hours. Then she made the call that would split her team down the middle. We're going back out. One last dive. What she found beneath those frozen Alaskan waters wasn't just gold. It was a classified wartime secret that had been hidden for over 80 years, and the authorities would do anything to keep it buried. The descent. By mid-afternoon, the tide window finally opened. Sarah dropped over the side of the vessel and vanished into the gray, murky water below. The descent was brutal. Visibility was almost zero. Silt clouds churned through the beam of her headlamp. She forced her breathing to steady, guided only by the handheld sonar strapped to her wrist. The trench below came into focus on her screen, a long depression stretching west to east. Most of it showed fine silt and broken rock. Standard seafloor composition. Then the signal changed. The device buzzed sharply in her hand. Metallic feedback. She swept the area again, slower this time. A solid return. The shape was too precise to be natural. A rectangular mass, maybe 10 feet long, buried under layers of gravel. Sarah dug her glove into the sand. Her fingers brushed something smooth, unnaturally cold. She cleared away more sediment, and a faint gleam flashed back at her light. Her heart pounded. This wasn't rock. She marked the site with a weighted buoy and surfaced immediately. When she climbed back onto the deck, water streaming from her suit, she reported what she'd found in clipped, steady words. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. They'd been expecting black sand, maybe a few ounces of placer gold left in the trench. Not this. Still, Sarah gave the order. Run suction. Slow speed. Focus on my marker. The first artifact. The pump roared to life. The suction hose descended into position, and soon it began clanking with debris. But instead of the usual gravel, the sluice box caught something dense, something flat. When they hauled it onto the deck, the entire crew fell silent. It was a thick metallic plate, roughly carved, its corners rounded by decades of corrosion. Sarah leaned in close. Across its surface ran shallow stamps and faded lettering. Not modern, not mining equipment, but official embossing. She scraped away a layer of grime with her knife. The gold shimmer underneath wasn't the bright yellow of raw nuggets. It had the dull, dense tone of refined alloy. Bullion. The metal test confirmed it. Nearly 98% purity. The same composition used in mid-20th century government minting. Along one edge, faint Latin letters appeared, half erased by time and salt. The crew stared. Latin, on a gold plate, buried beneath the Alaskan seafloor. Sarah didn't answer when someone asked if it could have come from a shipwreck. Instead, she focused on the dredge detector. Another ping, then another. Spaced just feet apart. A pattern was emerging. Deliberate, consistent, too precise to be random. She made her decision immediately. Keep the hose steady. Strip the layer above it. No widening, no moving the head. The vault. The crew complied, though unease hung heavy in the air. Each pass of the suction hose revealed clearer edges beneath the gravel. Slowly, the outline of a massive structure began to appear, wedged deep into the trench floor. The wood had blackened with age but remained intact, preserved by cold silt and low oxygen levels. Iron bands clung to its sides like skeletal armor, rusted but unbroken. Whatever lay beneath wasn't driftwood. It wasn't a modern shipping container. This was built to endure. And it had been waiting, undisturbed, for decades. Sarah ordered the crane rig repositioned for lift. The sensors showed the structure was heavier than expected. Far heavier. Internal scans from the handheld sonar displayed stacked density inside, each layer perfectly aligned. The pattern screamed one thing: bars. Not gold dust, not nuggets. Bars. She didn't celebrate. She just told the crew, "Bring it up slow." The winch groaned under the weight as the crate broke free of the seafloor. Fragments of silt clouded upward like smoke. Midway up, one corner of the frame gave way. The pressure and corrosion split it open, and a dull metallic clatter echoed across the deck. Several fused gold bars, each the size of a brick, spilled from the opening, still clumped together by salt and time. The deckhand nearest to them just stared, frozen. No one spoke. Sarah grabbed one of the bars, brushed the silt off, and turned it toward the light. Stamped across the surface, half eroded but unmistakable, were 5 words: U.S. Army Transport, 1942. She froze. This wasn't mining gold. This wasn't a local claim. This was government bullion. Wartime issue. The ship Sarah immediately called for a camera and documented every bar. Each one had matching serial patterns, uniform in size and markings. She logged them all before securing the site. Back inside the cabin, she pulled up military archives on her tablet, inputting the serial sequences by hand. Within minutes, a hit appeared. The numbers matched a wartime manifest from 1942, a shipment listed under Operation Cinder Vault. Classified cargo. Federal gold reserves moved north during World War II, intended for transfer through Anchorage. But the vessel carrying it, the Aurora's Hope, had vanished without record. No wreck, no debris, just listed as missing at sea. Sarah cross-referenced the coordinates. The ship's last known signal lined up almost exactly with the trench they'd been dredging. Point Delta. She wasn't working an old gold claim. She was sitting directly on top of a wartime transport that had never been found. The implications hit her immediately. Lost federal cargo, possible military property, maybe even international involvement if the shipment had been part of shared wartime reserves. Sarah didn't mention any of that aloud. She just told the crew they'd continue at first light. Same spot, same parameters. No one argued. The weight of what lay below was starting to sink in. By dawn, the surface had iced over. They cut through it with heaters and lowered Sarah again, this time with a reinforced tether and pressure monitor. The dive went deeper than before, following the edge of the trench. The sonar showed metallic debris scattered across 130 feet of seafloor. An entire debris field. Twisted rods, broken plates, fragments of hull plating. Sarah steadied herself against a ridge and swept her light forward. There. Bronze fittings glinted beneath layers of sediment, unmistakably marine grade. Not random scrap, not lost gear. This was structural, intentional, designed. She pushed closer, tracing the curve of a bulkhead, crushed under decades of weight. Inside a cavity where the plating had buckled inward, she saw containers wedged tightly together, sealed beneath collapsed beams. Each container was rectangular, metallic, and intact, far too heavy for natural movement. They were stacked in organized rows, almost untouched despite the wreck around them. She tapped one with her tool. The hollow ring echoed back through the water. Her pressure gauge spiked. The compartment still held trapped air, sealed since the day it sank. Sarah pressed a locator beacon against the hull and took a final scan before ascending. When she broke the surface, she only said 4 words. "We found the ship. The sealed chamber." Sarah descended one final time to breach the sealed compartment. She positioned hydraulic cutters against the corroded metal and triggered the first burst. The steel gave way faster than expected. When the seal finally cracked, a stream of fine gold dust erupted outward, swirling through the beam of her torch like a glittering storm. The compartment wasn't empty. It was full, stacked, heavy, untouched since the 1940s. Inside were neat rows of rectangular ingots, uniform and glowing faintly under her light. Each bar was stamped in black lettering, Federal Reserve, San Francisco. She lifted one and turned it in her hand. Even through her gloves, the weight told her everything, pure bullion, refined and stamped before the war shifted production. Her gauge estimated the compartment's contents at over 3,000 pounds. But then the hull groaned. The years had eaten through the structure, and the water pressure from the opened seal was shifting the balance inside the trench. A vibration rippled through the wall. The deck above creaked sharply. Then another section folded inward with a metallic crack. Sarah grabbed her tether line and signaled the surface. Haul fast. The collapse chased her upward in a cloud of silt and twisted debris. The seizure by the next morning, before Sarah could even prepare another dive, a message crackled over the radio. Coast Guard aircraft inbound, requesting coordinates and recovery details. Within hours, a cutter appeared on the horizon, approaching fast. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. No one had filed a report. Someone else had. By the time the vessel docked alongside the Poseidon, uniformed officers were already preparing manifests. They boarded with clear authority, citing maritime salvage laws and federal security protocols. They demanded immediate surrender of the recovered cargo for verification. Sarah handed over her logs, but their focus was on the gold. Row after row of ingots stacked across the deck. They sealed each piece in marked containers and photographed the serials, cross-referencing them against something none of the crew could see. Then a helicopter arrived, carrying 2 men in plain suits. No Coast Guard insignia. No identification. They spoke briefly to the commanding officer, then directed the team to crate the gold under restricted classification. Within hours, the entire haul, bars, artifacts, even sediment samples, was loaded aboard and removed. When Sarah asked for documentation, she was told the case involved national security handling and would be reviewed in Washington. Every crew member was interviewed separately on deck. They were told to maintain silence pending legal determination of salvage rights. Equipment logs were copied. The dredge's black box data was confiscated. The recovery zone around Point Delta was immediately declared restricted. By evening, the cutter departed, carrying every ounce of recovered gold, worth an estimated $90 million. No official paperwork confirmed the seizure. Maritime records listed nothing. Sarah's private note that night was simple. The vault is still down there. What they took wasn't all of it. The legacy over the following weeks, divers in the area reported seeing military submersibles returning to the trench at night, floodlights cutting across the frozen inlet, engines humming far from any public dock. Sarah commissioned a private lab to analyze residue from her dredge equipment. The results confirmed microscopic gold fragments, chemically identical to mid-20th century Federal Reserve bullion. The dredge had only disturbed the surface layer of a much larger deposit. Using encrypted sonar data, Sarah mapped 3 distinct metallic pockets, still buried deeper in the trench. Each showed density signatures consistent with intact gold ingots, still sealed in their original containers. She estimated the potential haul at several thousand pounds. Point Delta remains restricted. Sarah's mining permits were never renewed, but her encrypted logs, sonar files, and lab reports tell the full story. If $90 million came from the surface layer alone, what's buried below could be worth several times that amount. A wartime vault, a diplomatic secret, and a treasure still waiting beneath the ice, hidden for over 80 years and perhaps for many more to come.